Hey everyone, it's Ed. Welcome to another edition of Behind the Mask. This is when we go a little bit deeper behind the mask, figuratively and otherwise, with great clinicians that take care of our patients around the world. And with me, I have Dr. Shaiba Ansari-Ali.
Nice to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, welcome. I wanted to get the name right. Names are very important, and I wanted to pronounce it exactly right. What's the ethnic background to your name? Tell us about your name.
It's the Shaiba part is Persian, and it means somebody who has white hair. So somebody who's kind of older, knowledge, etc., things like that. And then Ansari means helper, and then Ali is just the last name.
Yeah, I love it. This is beautiful. I love it, other cultures because the names usually have deeper meaning
They
as
have
opposed to
meanings, yeah.
in the West. Our names can sometimes be a little bit boring, don't have much meaning. But you're a physician at Northwestern Medicine, but you're much more than that. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So, I was born in Athens, Georgia. I grew up in Iowa, went to medical school, pre-medicine at Augustana College, went to medical school at University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, and then actually started off in residency as an OB-GYN. So, but 6 days into a 1-year residency, I realized this isn't for me. So then after a year, I switched to medicine and I did my training at UIC. And then I did my fellowship at Loyola University. And then I went into private practice for about a good 7 years. And then you know how it is when each hospital system kind of gets eaten up by the bigger one. So
Great.
now I'm part of Northwestern.
Yeah, that's very cool. And you do some cool things outside of normal practice and normal life. You have your own YouTube channel and you just wrote a book. Tell us about the YouTube channel briefly and the book, and we'll have you back on Ed Talks to talk more in depth about both.
Okay. Well, the both of these were written because the book was written because one of my patients is close to like 97 now, and she said while she was still alive, I had to write a book how I got here and how I explained things. So that's kind of where the YouTube channel kind of took off. And the book I think was my own personal experience because I did have a near fatal stroke in 2016. And when I was in rehab, all these doctors are coming and talking to me, and they were using words that were way above. And I was a patient, and I thought they must know I'm a doctor. That's why they're talking to me this way, right? And I asked one of the nurses, and they're like, I asked the nurse, like, do you know I'm a doctor? And she's like, what? I'm like, okay, there we go. And so I realized the doctors didn't know I was a doctor, yet they were using words that I learned well halfway through medical school. So there was no way as a patient I would have understood that. So both of those things kind of led to the book. And then 2020, we had the pandemic, so I had more time. I really find writing difficult, Ed, much like my hero, George Lucas. Writing is like bleeding on paper for me. So I wrote a line a day, and 9 months later, I had a book.
Yeah, and I've read it and it's awesome. I want to share it by having you on Ed Talks, and we'll get a little bit deeper in that. So with Behind the Mask, we really asked three broad questions like who are you and how did you get here and where are you going? And so at what age did you know you were a leader? I think because by definition, physicians are typically
I
leaders.
know, right? Okay. So I think I knew I was always bossy. I can say that I'm the older sibling. Right? I have two younger brothers, and you know one of them when we're in Sorry. So I have two younger brothers. So I was always the bossy one. I was the oldest child of first generation immigrants. So I was always expected to kind of keep everybody else in line. And then I was the only girl in about 7 cousins, I think. So I would organize like, a picnic or a beach trip. So I was the organizer. So that's where I kind of got the leadership skills. So mostly because anybody younger than me in age or relation had to listen to me.
No, it makes total sense. Is there something that your parents forced you to do growing up that you kind of rolled your eyes or did it begrudgingly, but now as an adult and a clinician and
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
like,
They did. They did two things, I think, that really at the time was very grating on me, but they had all three of us be raised bilingual. So the rule was when you're inside the house, you could only speak Urdu, which is our native language. But when you're outside the house, you could speak English. And you can't really fight in Urdu because we didn't know the bad words, right? So you go on the front lawn, you fight in English, and then you come back in type of thing. So they forced us to be bilingual. And then the other thing is they forced us to work hard, but I think that's all first generation immigrants, right? But they forced us to be respectful and to show restraint. So if we ever came to them with a complaint like, well, did you see what my brother did? Then it was like, yeah, I know what he did, but what did you do? How did you react? So it was an emphasis on you respect everybody and you show great restraint towards everybody.
wow, I want to meet your parents. They sound like pretty cool people. What was the single biggest catalyst that caused you to decide to become a physician?
So actually, I have kind of always known I wanted to be a physician since a very young age. My uncle was a cardiologist in Minnesota, and my aunt was a physician in India. She practiced in the 60s. I always used to play in my uncle's study, and he always signed his patients' prescriptions as Dr. Ansari, MD, FACP, which means Medical Doctor, Fellow of American College of Physicians. So when I went to kindergarten and I learned how to write my name, I wrote it Shaiba, MD, FACP. And the teacher said, that's not how you write your name. And I said, well, in my family, that is. And I kind of wanted to be a doctor ever since then. And then I started reading Sherlock Holmes, and I didn't realize the author of Sherlock Holmes, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, was actually a doctor. And he had based that character on a Dr. Bell who had taught him. And Dr. Bell had that ability to look at you and pick little things and say, this is what you have. So it's kind of like solving that mystery. So medicine to me is like that. You hear it, you look at the patient, you see what they have on the outside, you match it up, and you come to a diagnosis. So I think it was just natural to go that way.
I love that signature thing.
Yeah.
What is one thing that most of your coworkers don't know about you? So when they watch this video, it'd be the first time they know.
So probably they know I'm organized, but I don't think they know the level of organization. So for instance, let's say I had a talk with you today, right? So Sunday at 4:55 a.m. are all my events that are coming up that week. 9:30 p.m. the night before on my calendar are the things that are happening the next day. 4:30 a.m. the day of are things that are happening that day. 4:35 are things I'm going to do at home. And then 6 a.m. is like take my medications and stuff. And all of these will link to lists. So like the 4:35 a.m. slot says 4:35 a.m. things. And then it's a list in my note area that's alphabetized, of course. And in that list, I will list all the things that have to be done. And I put question mark before things that have to be done. Y means they're pending, and X in front of them means they're completely done. And if I really want to signify like this has to be done now, I'll put a due date. I'll say before this time, I'll underline it and I'll bold print it. So I'm organized on every level. And that's just like 10% of what I'm doing. And I was organized before the stroke, but after the stroke, that level of organization has kept me productive. I can do everything because of like mental fatigue. I can do everything for a little bit, but not for hours. I could go to the library and study organic chemistry for 15 hours, and I thought it was great. I can't do that anymore. So I usually do everything for like 15, 20 minutes a day. So writing again, I just find it painful. So 15 minutes a day of that. I read like 5 to 7 books at a time because I can read like 15 minutes of each book at a time. So that just keeps me organized.
The sound, I would not be surprised if you told me that you were former military and had this great military training. That sounds,
Wish.
I,
I wish.
no, that's pretty cool. Well, I think you may have already mentioned it, but I'll ask the question. What's the defining moment in your life that changed your destiny?
It was a stroke. It was a stroke in 2016 when I became a patient. And I realized one was how the doctors were, the doctors are not good educators. And I was surprised. I actually thought that my patients would tell me over the years, you explain things differently. And it really never clicked. But then when I had this stroke myself and I was in the hospital bed and these doctors would come in and say things, I'm like, yeah, I get that now. And again, I really thought they knew I was a physician. And I had to ask and say, they know I'm a doctor, right? And they didn't. So that was one thing. And then the other thing is, as a physician, you see some diseases that they have like a time limit. So for instance, for stroke, it's that first 90 days is very essential. Your body is primed to heal. Your brain is primed to heal. And I would see a lot of patients in rehab that wouldn't do something because it hurt too much or was uncomfortable. And I felt like telling them, just do it, just work through it and do it. So I think if patients better understood, and I see this in clinic all the time too, like I'll see a patient maybe who has high blood pressure and they don't want to take the high blood pressure pill because they're afraid of the side effects. That's fine. But then what they don't realize is that damage is going on the inside. And if you wait a few years and you'll have high blood pressure and a kidney problem. So I wish 10 years before somebody had explained it to them better.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. So now we're going to sort of shift, like, how did you get here and, what the here and now. So tell us about the last time you cried.
So I think, as you know, in the world events and stuff, there's a lot of death and dying, right? So of course, you cry about that. I don't cry professionally because as I binge watched a couple of your episodes before hitting here. And like that physician said, you are the professional in the room. So you have to keep your cool type of thing. And one time, when I freaked out over a disease a patient had, and actually scared them because I was scared. So I don't cry in clinic. I don't show much emotion that way in clinic. But I think what it is like, as a human being, you see this loss of life and it's horrifying. But as a physician, you know that 37 trillion cells came together to make one human body. And to see that portion lost is just devastating. So I think that's, just the loss of human life.
Yeah, that's tough. What's something you really wanted in life? Could have been in your youth, could have been more recently, and you didn't get it.
I'm sorry, interrupting, because I know exactly what the answer to that is. I wanted to be in martial arts, and I actually did Taekwondo for like a good year. And I really wanted to be that person who could totally defend themselves using their body and, I don't know, a paper clip or something like that. But I did it for a year and I wasn't able to continue it. And now I can't do it because the medications I'm on, I just can't. But I really wish that was something that I had not given up on.
Yeah, I could see that. Tell me about a time someone tried to hold you back, and how did you respond?
So I think the biggest person who was holding me back over the years was actually me.
Hmm.
And again, I think it was because in my mindset, I went to medical school. I didn't go to business school. I went to medical school. I didn't go to movie producing school. I went to medical school. I didn't go to writing school, so it was always a focus on this. So I think that was the biggest hang up. Like I had to get over that and say like, it's okay. And so even like, you can Google your way through pretty much anything now. So, and that's what I've been doing.
Yeah, that's good. That's why I don't want to say good answer, but I'm saying it. It's a good answer. I think we hold ourselves back quite a
Yeah,
bit.
and one of your speakers had said, which again, because I watched your previous videos, had said that when you say the inability to say no, and I think in medicine you're kind of trained to not say no, and then you kind of get into that habit. And when you say yes to something, you're saying no to five other things, and that's so true. And so over time, you put yourself and your health all the way in the back because you just keep saying yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lesson I've got to keep learning. Tell us about the last time you received a thank you card, or maybe that you wrote one.
So actually, I lost the fine motor on my right side, so I can't write very well. But I text and I email, so I do digital thank you. And I think actually, I was looking back trying to see when's the last time I tell my staff every day thank you at the end of the day, and I try to keep it funny in a relaxed atmosphere. But I think the last real thank you note I sent was to you in January. And I don't know if you even remember this because you see thousands of people all the time. But in January, I think I wrote to you and I said, because before November, I had no idea who you were. Sorry about that. But you talked to me for like 20 minutes. You told me to do these like 7 things. I was able to do like 6 of them. And I think I wrote you a thank you saying like, gosh, those 6 things you told me, I've been doing those and I'm here.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. You keep referring to your stroke and impact on you. I would have no idea unless you're, except for the fact that you told me.
Yeah, that's nice because some of my deficits they are invisible, so I don't hear very well out of this ear. So actually, when I went back to work, my staff positioned my chair so that the patient was only on this side because the patient doesn't know any of this. I can't write anymore, so I actually look at the patient. I kind of memorize everything that's coming out of them, and then I go back to my station and I dictate. I have trouble walking long distances, so like when I'm at the airport, I actually use a rollator because my leg will give out. And the weirdest part is, I know I'm speaking okay now, but I actually spoke very quickly before. So this is like half the speed of what I'm used to speaking. And I have to say words differently on the inside to get the right sound on the outside. So I taught myself how to change my tongue a little bit. Even though it doesn't sound right to me, it sounds right on the outside.
Well, it's remarkable. Chatting to the next generation.
Yes.
What would you tell them about relishing in the journey? You know how you're in a hurry. Well, maybe you weren't, but many people are in a hurry. Like I want to get through medical school. I want to get through residency. I want to get through
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
What
You're
would you?
always, yeah. And I think when you're young, you're in a hurry because you have your whole life ahead of you, right? That's part of it. You think you could never die and nothing bad could happen and you just have to go from one stepping stone to. So I would tell people enjoy the process. If you have to study for 15 hours in the law library of your medical school, where you'd never see a law student, but they're filled with medical students, go take a break, go eat some lunch, go sit on the grass, watch other people smoke their weed and then go back inside and study again. Right. So do that. So enjoy the process. And then the other thing I'm sorry, can I say more than one or I can't?
Oh yeah, yeah. Go keep going.
The other
Because
thing I would say is, you are never too old to get burned in medicine. So, which means you are never too old to learn in medicine. And I have seen this where physicians led an illustrious career. And then the week before they retired, they made a rookie mistake because they just got so comfortable in their role. And so you have to be humble. You have to be willing to learn, you have to be willing to listen. And then I think the third thing is be grateful, because as you know, and I know, we get to be here, right? We have to decide what to do with the time that is given us.
Yes.
Tolkien would say. So we get to be here. So we have to be grateful that there are, like as Warren Buffett said, you're sitting in the shade of a tree because somebody planted it years ago. So be grateful.
Yeah, profound. This good stuff. What's next? So, not that we're hurrying you out of your current position, but are there other like big things? Well, big thing was writing a book, especially given some of the challenges that you spoke about. But what else? Like, what are there some big things ahead of you?
Well, I was thinking about this just yesterday. I came up with something different too, but I would like to. I like to do things that I'm enjoying. So that first year that I did the YouTube channel, I did medicine topics. I was doing one every week, and I'll often do that. Where if I fear something, I'll make myself do it more and more and more until it becomes very easy. And so this year I'm doing rheumatology, but next year I would like to do stroke rehab, and then maybe the year after that, the next one after that would be like how should a physician or a healthcare provider talk to the patient? What words they should use that may be a little bit easier for patients to understand? And then I do a journal club at my hospital. We're a few rheumatologists, 6 rheumatologists at our hospital. And I just the other day, my boss doesn't know this yet, but the next time I present, instead of doing one article in rheumatology, I would like to do the top 10. So since we last met, what are the top 10 things in rheumatology that have changed? I would like to continue working as a clinician because I really enjoy clinic. I really like seeing different people every 15 to 20 minutes. I like that. I really wanted to do something like Doctors Without Borders and be in places that people really needed me. Unfortunately, because of my health issues, I can't, but there have been a few opportunities where I think I can teach medical students in other places online. So that would be really nice.
Dr. Shaiba Ansari-Ali, you're an amazing, I want to get it right. You're an amazing human. I would have you as my physician if I were in
I
Chicago.
would be honored to be your physician.